Things have improved a lot. Why am I still unhappy? Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast.
I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler.
We're brothers.
We're therapists.
And we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Hey, Tyler, you ready to have some hard conversations?
Let's do it.
Let the Therapy Brothers podcast begin. Tyler, you recovering?
Man, we just got done with the best weekend. It was great, man.
We say that every time.
I know, every time. Yeah. We just got done with the Rising Sun retreat. We're recording the day after it ended, so I think both of us are maybe a little bit exhausted, but I feel totally fulfilled, man. It was a great experience.
You know, you always bring up leaving it all on the field. You know, a man just beaten down. That's what you did this last weekend. You just went all in, left it all on the field. Dude, the man on fire. I just love watching. I sit back in awe, man.
But whatever, dude.
Like, holy crap! Look at him go.
The simple truth, Brannon, is that you did the same things, and we had a whole staff of men who came and did that same thing, and we had a whole group of men who came and did that same thing in their own arena too. And it was a sight to behold, and it was a gift to be a part of it.
In reality, it's not much about what we do. It's about what the participants bring to the table. And when you get a group of men like that together, just miracles happen. And that's exactly what happened. So it was awesome.
Yeah. Big shout out to every single one of the men that came and brought their own personal selves to do their own personal work. And that collective energy made something bigger altogether than any one of them could have made by themselves.
Yep. Well, all right, Tyler, should we get in
Let's
with
go.
our guest here? Okay, well, Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
If you could just tell us where you're at, tell us what's going on with you, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Me and my husband have been married coming on 8 years. And pretty much from the get-go, he was a gamer. I guess I don't know what qualifies as a heavy gamer. Felt pretty heavy to me, and it wasn't something I was aware of before we got married. It appeared afterwards. So several hours a day, we ended up starting our family pretty quickly. Looking back, I realized I was thinking, if we have a kid, like obviously if he has more responsibility, he'll game less. And that was not fair, not a fair assumption, but also it didn't work out the way I planned. The gaming continued. Again, 4, 5, 6 hours a day, sometimes more on the weekends. And I don't know if this is helpful, just to kind of give you an idea of how heavily dependent he was. The birth of our first child, when I was laboring, he had his computer at the hospital. We ended up miscarrying, a late-term miscarriage, such that I had to deliver at the hospital. And same thing, he brought his computer and was playing during labor. And so the birth of our second child, I had the conversation with him that I didn't want the computer at the hospital. And his immediate reaction was, well, I guess you don't want me at the birth. We let that sit for a while. He quickly apologized, but that's kind of the mindset he was in. So this went on for pretty much until just about the birth of our third child, which things kind of came to a head. I have been doing therapy kind of this whole time, just really not in a good place, but trying to get out of it. Kind of depending on his participation for my, becoming happy. And I was introduced to codependence. That was really kind of an epiphany for me. And I was able to realize my happiness is not dependent on him quitting. However, because we have kids, it sure doesn't help when he's playing so much. So when I was I did manage to get him to agree to go to couples therapy before the birth of our third child. And it was positive. It didn't lead to his personal work that I had hoped. But it was positive, and ultimately, before I delivered our third, I told him, I kind of put it on the table. I need help. If you're not willing to help me, then I need to go somewhere where I can get the help. And so I had set up to stay with my parents for a while. And then our third baby was born, and it did change. Part of it was I read about detachment now. I detached. I stopped caring what kind of contribution he made, just as long as he started sharing the burden. And so I would leave the house knowing that he wouldn't get off the computer, but he would also, keep our kids alive. And because of that, there was a change. I think when I stopped pressuring him, things did get better. And even fast forward, our youngest is 1.5 years. In the last few months, he's played so much less, and especially hardly during our kids' waking hours, which was my main, like, if you're going to do it, just wait until they're asleep. So the playing is much, much less, but I still feel this residual anger just because of all the years of him doing this. And I really feel like he was taking advantage of me. And I'm sure there was depression involved, and I'm sure there were lots of things involved, but even though he has stopped playing, I still feel like the underlying, I don't know what you call it, entitlement or immaturity that would allow you in good conscience to play that much when you have a wife and young kids. I feel like that's still there. He hasn't resolved that. So it still comes up in, like, he's not gaming as much, but he has picked up another hobby that I feel is better, golf. He's golfing, he's getting outside, he's doing it with other people, but it's also kind of this sense of, I can do whatever I want, whenever I want to, and if you tell me otherwise, there's going to be a problem. And so things can be really good, and then in my perception, he reverts back to that kind of entitlement, and immediately just all the feelings of the past however long just come right back. So yeah, it's just resentment, and it's just heavy.
Sarah, does he spend a lot of time at work as well?
No. Well, it just depends on the season, and he is very, like I said, things are a lot better. He's present. When he comes home, he's home. He's building the relationship with our kids that he didn't do before. So work, he's at work, but it's not like he comes home at 8 p.m.
Gotcha.
How much does he work? Is it just like a normal full-time job?
Oh, yeah, 8 to 5, we'll say, depending on the day.
So now, go ahead, Sarah.
Well, I was just going to say, he's always been a provider. He's the gaming. Well, there was like a time when it did interfere, and then I think he realized, oh, this is a problem. So he's always provided. We've never not had an income because of his gaming.
And so I love golf just as much as the next guy. But how often is he golfing?
When it first started, a lot. So it replaced it. And it's a much, in my mind, man, he's getting outside, he's with people, like the difference in activities was huge. So I wanted to be careful of like discouraging that. But then after a month of, a few or even several games a week, we had the conversation like, this isn't sustainable. I'm glad you like it, and you like it, and now you need to tone it down. And again, it was the similar resistance to when we'd have that conversation about gaming. Although we are also at a point now where it's much more reasonable. Still more than I'd like, but I'm happy with frequency, as long as he starts bringing the kids.
Yeah.
What do you think is what other issues for you are laced around the resentment that you still carry? Is it resentment of not being seen from the past? Is it a feeling of a lack of justice? Is there other stuff currently going on that cues up and keeps the resentment alive? Like, what's attached to the resentment for you?
Yeah, he just very like just really recently he did he we've our marriage is kind of split up into the places we've lived. So there was a year that we spent at an apartment, and that was the first apartment we brought our first child home. So that's where we started our family. We were there for a year, and he specifically apologized for that year that I didn't pay attention to like I should have, and which I really appreciated. And I felt okay, you recognize like what you were doing in the impact, but then that was 1 year among almost 7 years. So there's kind of this, I don't know if he even realizes like the hell that it was. And I don't know if an apology would fix that, but yes, kind of is, I guess, yeah, the justice. Have you felt the extent of what I felt while it was happening?
Sarah, I want to ask you, as these years have gone by, what has been your style of communication? Like, have you just tried to suck it up and keep the peace? Do you get aggressive? Do you like, how do you confront, or how have you confronted the issue?
The whole spectrum. I really, I can look back now and just appreciate that I was and still am also really immature. So like you said, we really fell into that pattern of I'm angry, and because I'm angry, he stays on his game. I'm not going to get off because you're just angry. So yes, aggression, criticism, all of those things. And then that's been kind of my process, is recognizing that I am a controlling person, and I don't like it when people don't do what I want them to do. I would say it started, my communication style was not good. I still fall back into it sometimes, but I'm much better. I'm much more patient also, because I kind of have come to a place where he's not going to participate. He's not going to do family activities. I've stopped hoping that it'll happen, and that makes it easier to just, when he doesn't, it's like, oh, well, that's expected.
Sarah, where have you gotten that you're a controlling person feedback other than from him?
When I go hang out with my family, I realize, oh, we all like to be right. It's not just, he's not just saying it because I want him to get off the game. It's true.
I don't know, right? But I do wonder. The reason I'm kind of wondering about it is the whole thing about your childbirth and just how oblivious he has been to it for so long.
Yeah.
I just wonder how much you've actually reflected it back to him. And it sounds like you have in many ways, and then you haven't. You've just given up and gotten to that hopeless state of like, whatever, like just do what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So and the whole controlling thing, what concerns me about that is, has he effectively gaslit you to make this about you when his addiction is really wreaking some havoc? And if he can get you spinning off, worrying about how controlling you are, then his addiction can continue to stay in the relationship with you, versus you like feeling those feelings of wanting to do something, wanting to control, but actually not tamping them down, but then taking those and saying, okay, how can I effectively actually go communicate my truths here around this? So That's my concern is
Yeah.
if there's an effective gaslight going on, I just want to make sure that you're not beating yourself up for something
Sure.
that has actually been, that's actually very important considering the things you've been through in your marriage.
Yeah, I maybe this is helpful. When I was really steeped in it, I just didn't like how I felt, how I was acting. I oftentimes took my anger of him out on our kids. So there was a lot of, I've grown a lot into someone who I actually like.
Nice.
And I think, so that is separate. I realize that his dependence, his difficulty has been a catalyst for that. And for sure, I'm sure there's him protecting himself from having to grow. That, I guess, gaslighting. And at this point, I really feel that that's not happening. Because if I want something to get done, if I wanted our family to do something, I just do it. I don't, even if he's not willing to take part, that doesn't bother me anymore. More, it's just disappointing that, wow, I wish I had a partner who like didn't get defensive because we've had this conversation of like, I still feel angry for all the years that you were gaming as much as you did. He can't have those conversations. He's not able to. And so, yeah, I guess in that sense, that's me keeping that inside, because he can't handle it. He gets defensive, he gets upset, and he will tell me in these conversations that I'm choosing to be angry, that I'm choosing to hang on to this anger, which I know kind of lets him off the hook, but I know that's partly true, and I want to know how I can like work past the anger, even if he's not going to participate in that conversation, because I don't want to be angry.
Sarah, I'm glad you're here. And I think you're asking the right question. Brannon's trying to do his due diligence to make sure that we're not going to give you advice that's going to actually help continue a cycle that's really unhealthy. And the advice would possibly be, hey, just accept that it is what it is. And then, but that's not, there's something inside of you that still knows that even with the work that's been done, there's something that's still not quite right. The other thing that I think is going on, and I think this is part of your question, we can definitely get into this a little bit, is what's the most effective way for me to deal with my emotions and my feelings so that I don't carry the burden longer than I need to of resentment, anger, bitterness, whatever else. And I think that's a fair question. One thought that I'm having is this, and I don't know what you think about this, Sarah, but sometimes people swing from one end to another on a situation like this, and they miss the middle, and the middle part really matters. And the one end is, okay, I can identify that I've been angry and controlling, and that hasn't been very effective. So I'm going to swing all the way over to this place of, I'm going to put in air quotes, acceptance. But acceptance really isn't complete acceptance. It's more of like resignation. And then I just resign myself to things as they are. And in the middle, there's still all of this other feeling that has never been allowed to be seen, spoken, validated, even understood. And that's all of the stuff that's underneath the anger. It's not, you're angry because there's other stuff there that hasn't been able to be seen or vocalized or understood. And so it's possible that part of what your body is saying is, I need a way to process all of these other emotions, and I would love to have a safe place to articulate those things, especially to him if I could. But if not, I still have to address that I felt alone, I felt abandoned, I felt used, I felt manipulated, I felt unseen, I'm putting words in your mouth, but I imagine those are a lot of the things that you felt.
Yeah.
And those things never get a chance to be talked about because it's always either been control and anger or quote acceptance.
Right.
And I wonder what you've been able to do with those middle feelings and if there's been a safe place to process those things.
Yeah, journaling. I haven't done any therapy since the couples therapy. Yeah, we have, my husband and I have been able to have more of those conversations. I just have to be so careful. I have to be so careful. So, yeah, I guess that would be finding where I can express that would be really helpful.
What's it like for you? Like, what emotions does it elicit when you say you have to be so careful?
Well, just that, kind of just this like, oh man, do I have to be the bigger person again? Like, we're in a much better place than we were. And it's definitely not fair to say because of all the work that I've done. But as far as like really examining my contribution to the bad pattern, he just hasn't done that because I'm happy, I'm content I don't see a problem as long as I can just tolerate you being angry, then there is no problem, kind of.
I mean, I'd be happy and content too if I could play video games and golf while my wife changes all the diapers.
Yes,
You
and
know?
he does change diapers. That's
Good
the
for
thing.
him.
That's the thing. It's a night and day difference, but also, is it fair that I'm like, well, at least it's not terrible, you know? It's just,
yeah. I hear, I'm going to be a little blunt here. I hear you settling for scraps a little bit, and when you talk about your contribution to the problem, I don't think your contribution is when you've stepped up and spoken up about what's going on for you.
right.
And it seems like we're missing the bigger point here. And tell me if I'm wrong here, Sarah, but that's the boundary of that's being broken here, which I hear is that you want to be in a relationship with a man who cares and protects your heart and wants to connect to your pain. And what I'm hearing is that you're in a relationship with a man who's trying to be better. And he probably is a great man, like in many ways, but doesn't have the strength and courage to actually step in the difficult things with you. And there's still a lot of shame underneath there for him, which makes it, well, it's not impossible, but it feels impossible to actually be intimate in the most difficult places with you.
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing is you trying to like survive and fix it and do everything what's in your control and your power, and that's good. But are you actually addressing the actual real issue with him? It's not about him video gaming. I mean, that sucks. But it's about something deeper than that. Mm-hmm. It's about the attachment issues that you're having in your relationship, and your intuition and your heart is just screaming out and saying, I need something more. I need something different. And your head is saying, shut up, heart. Do this. You can survive this way, and smile and say he's a good guy. But your heart's still screaming out. So,
Brannon, another way of saying that, I think, and this is what's going through me is and this is what I'm hearing is that, again, I'm going to use some kind of blunt language too, but what I've heard you say is, I married an emotional 7-year-old, and now he's an emotional 14-year-old, and I should be really grateful for that. And I'm so glad, but I got to be careful, because if I'm not careful, he's going to revert back to an emotional 10-year-old. So, but what you really want is, you want to be married to a grown-ass man who can actually hold a conversation, even if there's a little bit of tension. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be married to a man who can do that. And we can be grateful that he's now a 14-year-old instead of an 8-year-old. But that doesn't change the fact that there's still work to do. And if he's not going to do that work, that leaves you in a hard spot to make some hard decisions.
Yeah. I just listening, I hear people who, through all the difficulties of their marriage, they just can't, like, but I still love them so much. Like, I can't bear the thought of leaving them. But I just like, where do they get that patience? How long can you wait for someone to grow up?
There's a difference in waiting for someone to grow up when they're making an effort to grow up versus someone who's saying, I don't want to grow up. And I'm saying this, from the other side of it. We teach men to go golfing. We teach men to have hobbies.
Yeah.
But when you get off your 8 to 5 job and then you go to your hobby for 4 to 6 hours a day, that's called a part-time job that you're not getting paid for. That's not a hobby.
The Sarah, I think we need to be careful, Tyler and I, because we can get fired up about
Brannon's trying to calm me down right now.
About men not showing up for their wives. And the truth is he might be listening to this and having all kinds of things happen. Like, you're not hearing my side. You don't understand what it's like being married to Sarah and whatever, I don't know what he's thinking, but
yeah.
But the truth is, Sarah, we can rail on him like crazy. But you, in your attempts to try to like survive in the relationship and be happy, you do enable him to be that 14-year-old.
Yeah.
And it's scary because if you put it on the line of, can you go as far to say that it's a deal breaker that I want a man that can connect to my heart?
Right. Sorry,
Right?
I have to deliver a binky. Just a second.
Oh, you're fine.
Here you go. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, you're right.
So, is it a deal breaker to have a man that can connect to my heart and to really care about what I've been through?
Yeah.
What do you think, Sarah?
I mean, I can talk about deal breakers, and I'm just not in a position to be able to break the deal, as you can hear right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about just get divorced. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying, like, if you go and you just try to shut up and deal with it yourself, or you go and you complain to him and you tell him like, hey, you got to do this or you got to change it, like you swing the pendulum like Tyler's talking about.
Yeah.
Neither one of those are effective. But if you go in your power and in your truth and in your honesty and say, look, this is where I'm at and this is how I'm feeling. And this is actually, I'm clear now as to what I need. So you might not get that today or tomorrow, but if he says, you know what, I'm in for the process of it. Like, let's go figure this out together.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Then he's starting to meet that need of yours. If he's like, well, you're just always horrible and you're always complaining and controlling and, don't ask me to do anything because, I won't show up. Then you're getting an answer and it's not the answer you want. But then you got to look at that and say, okay, what do I do now? And not just swallow it and stuff it. What do I do now that I'm getting a clear answer that need is not going to get met for me? Right. And that's the scary point where it's like, I do need to make some decisions in my life so that I can live in my truths.
Yeah.
And I think to go along with what you're saying, Brannon, and this is the part maybe I'm pushing on, and I know I'm being a little bit hard on your husband. I don't know him. He sounds like he is trying in some areas. And if he actually is trying in some areas, then what Brannon's saying would be even more important, which is instead of saying, I better not bring up certain things because he's an emotional 14-year-old, what you say is, I want to be married to an emotional adult, and he's only going to develop those skills if I give him another opportunity to figure out how to hold this.
Yeah.
It's like Tyler froze on us, Sarah. But I think what he was saying, if I can just kind of continue his thought here, is what he's saying to you, Sarah, is don't bail. Is if you stuff it and swallow it and you don't speak your truths, if you get really, really good at survival, then you do rob him of an opportunity for some practice and some growth. It's kind of like I went to my doctor and my doctor said, Brannon, you're too good at tolerating pain. And I thought, what do you mean? Like, isn't that cool to be really strong and deal, I can just deal with, he said, the longer you let pains like this linger, the more they turn into serious problems with your health. And so when you have this shoulder pain or you have that, like you need to address it so that you can actually get better. And just because you're tough, just because you can suffer through this, doesn't mean that that's good.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying, Sarah?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think I'm not stuffing down, though I recognize that I really want a really strong emotional connection. And I've gotten to the point where I've reached out, and I see that he's not ready for it. He's ready to a certain capacity. And so I've just had to outsource. I have a lot of good friendships.
Good.
I've got a lot of, so that emotional bonding is being met, but not in my marriage. And it's just disappointing. And and it also kind of bleeds into how I feel about him and how I treat him. Yes, he's acting like a child. He also is deserving to be treated like an adult. And it's a strange dynamic that you can't give me what I need, but I also need to continue treating you like, I can't just start treating you like a child, because that's not going to be productive for anyone. But also I need to find all these other adults in my life to do what I wish we could do with each other.
Tyler, go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, sorry. I did lose you guys, but I could hear your whole conversation. And Brannon, you did fill in where I was going, is that if the question was, how do I help things go right? Helping things go right doesn't mean avoiding the discussion. It means trying to figure out how to be tactful and expressing the needs underneath the anger and giving your partner an opportunity to grow a little bit in their emotional maturity. What I hear you doing is actually really good work, Sarah, that you have some other places to fill in the gaps. You're probably going to still have the grieving over wishing that was happening in your relationship. I hear you asking the question, how do I help things go right? If I'm going to stay in the relationship, I would also maybe look at all of the rest of my relationship and making sure that my level of intimacy aligns itself across all other aspects of intimacy. So if I'm having a sexually intimate relationship with a person that is at a certain level, but our emotional relationship is at a different level, the gap between those two things is a potential place for continued suffering.
Yeah.
Because you're going to feel used or mistreated, or there's a chance that you're going to continue to have that resentment happening. And so aligning your boundaries with the level of intimacy in the relationship and then inviting the relationship to grow into something new is a great direction to go, even though you're still going to have the grieving of what you wish you had.
Yeah. That is a conversation we do have frequently. He wants me to desire him, and that I don't do ultimatums, but he wants to have sex, and I say, well, then you need to be someone who I want to be intimate with, and that is a sensitive like, I don't ever want to use it as a weapon.
It's not a weapon.
No, and we do, anyway.
That's honesty. What you just said is honesty. And that's what we're talking about right there, Sarah, is for you to, but notice what you did. Like, your truth is, you want to be desired. Well, I don't desire you. So let's work on that so I can, because I won't, I'd love to have sex with you, but I'm not in that place. So do you see the boundary that you're at there?
Yeah.
But then you quickly go to, but then, like, I'm controlling, and like, I don't want to be that kind of a wife. And what we're saying is tap into that truth inside of you. Like, think about it, Sarah. It's like he spent 7, I don't know how many years gaming, and you know, almost missed the birth of your children, and you went through something so traumatic. He wasn't there for you. And then like he's had a year or so of like at least being present during the daylight hours. And then at night he's like, "What the heck? You don't want me?" Do you see the issue there? And then you're like, "Well, let me tell you about my pain, or tell me about my emotions." And he's like, whoa, too much. But don't you want me? And so when you have that boundary in a kind, loving way, it needs to be put back on him to go figure out how to work his recovery so that he's resonating in a place of confidence and strength and empathy. So then you want to be by that guy.
Yeah.
But if you just have sex with him out of guilt again and again, or swallow it and hold, then he doesn't, nothing changes. He's right.
Which I don't do. I don't do that.
Good,
maybe
Sarah.
I would have at the beginning, but no, I don't. I don't do that.
Good.
I'm having this, Brannon. You'll remember this. I don't know, Sarah. Have you seen the old musical Seven Brides for Seven Brothers?
Yes.
It's quite chauvinistic, I must say.
It's one of my in-laws' favorite movies, which is funny.
Okay. So I'm bringing this up because I'm thinking that principally speaking, Adam, the oldest brother, goes into town, gets Millie to marry him in a single day somehow, and then he brings her back and doesn't tell her and lies like. By omission, he lies about the fact that he's got 6 other brothers living up there in the shed. And then she gets there and kind of like sees this and goes, "Oh no." But then she rolls up her sleeves and gets to work because she's going to be her best. And she makes this amazing dinner. And then all the brothers come running in and they start just like jumping all over the table, fighting for all the food and stuff. And she tries to get them to say grace and they won't. And so she ends up just like going and flipping the table over, and she's like, "If you guys are going to act like a bunch of pigs, then we're going to eat like a bunch of pigs." And she just like flips the table over. And then of course she sets boundaries with Adam and sends him out to sleep in the tree that night. That's the principle of what we're talking about here is I'm going to align my ability to have intimacy with you with the level of intimacy that we can have together. So, and what Brannon's saying, and I hope your husband is listening to this, is that it's so much more attractive to be married to a man who can hold the tension when it comes.
Yeah.
When you come to him and you say, "Hey, I'm really struggling today. I feel a lot of resentment from old stuff, and I'm just having a wave of emotion that's just heartbreaking to me about having been alone during some of these times." And if he actually steps in and learns how to do this and can go, "Man, I hear that. I'm so sad that you're feeling that way. And I'm so sad that I was so far gone that I didn't see you. But I'm here now. And how close or distant do you want me right now?" Like that is so much more attractive than, "Why don't you desire me? I just got done with like 4 hours of Fortnite and I killed it."
Yeah.
I just dominated.
Yeah. It sounds like he's a man that likes to fight a battle and wants to win. Like that's good. That's inside of him. It's just shifting the arena a little bit is what he needs to do. And like he gets his accolades in these fake ways versus like spending that time and effort and energy in the arena with you, Sarah. And sounds like he is a man that wants to do that, but let me give you another analogy here. I went to the gym this morning and it was crowded and there was all these people, and I had the thought like, all these people, they got up early to come experience pain, which in turn makes them stronger. And if you think about that principle, it's pretty cool, and it's also like kind of crappy in some ways. But it's the same thing exists with you and your husband. Is it's not about like him stopping gaming, like that's you settling for scraps. But it's about you and him being willing to go to the metaphorical gym together. Let's go experience some difficulty, some pain, learn how to work through that difficulty and that pain together, And in the end, we'll become stronger. We'll learn how to get resolution in our marriage. We'll learn how to build trust. We can communicate, deeper intimacy, but that comes at a cost.
Yeah.
You got to get up early and get to the gym, so to speak. You have to face the issues and then get to work if long-term things are going to change between you and him. And he needs to be on board to want to do that work, not to be perfect, but if he's not on board to do that work, then things aren't going to change in your relationship.
Yeah.
And because I hear that you're in a spot where you don't want to change the relationship or leave the relationship, or maybe you feel like you couldn't, you might as well give it the opportunity to do the growing while you're in it.
Yeah.
And so that'll be your own individual continued work that you're already doing, your self-care, your other team members, lots of self-compassion, and then courageous action towards that practice. And it sounds like he does come along after the practice happens for a while, a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So not that you're responsible for that, but if you're going to be in the relationship, that's the way you invite things to go right.
Sarah, what are you
at the pace you have the energy for it, of course.
Right.
What are you thinking, Sarah? What are you feeling before we wrap up?
Yeah, hold on. Yeah. Wow. So in the last year, his brother, who has struggled with the same thing, just gaming for all day and just really not doing the other things that you do when you transition to adulthood. His younger brother also got married, and his wife knew what he was doing and his family knew what he was doing, and I just kind of watched it happen, and lo and behold, he's continuing that into his marriage, and that was very triggering. It was difficult for me to be with his family for a while, just because I just thought, man, did no one tell me what I was getting into? And just through conversations with his wife, the brother's wife, I don't know. I understand a lot of what my husband is experiencing comes from his family of origin. And again, it's just, I guess because I am going to stay, I need to be able to stay well, like stay not happily, maybe isn't the right word, but to stay with dignity. Also, it's just like, feels like I'm fighting a losing battle. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard, Sarah. But I'll just say what is in your control is you getting healthy, and a healthy partner invites the other person to heal their generational trauma and patterns. And an unhealthy partner will just help them continue it. Yeah. And so you're here talking to us. You are wanting to be healthy. You're shifting. But I also hear a little bit of like hesitation, because that hopelessness comes in and says, what's the point? Like if I really go for the gold here, what's the consequences going to be? And so I can hear your ambivalence, your fear, but I also hear your willingness to want to shift something.
I also hear some heaviness and some pain and some grief, but I also sense your willingness, and I think you are doing some good work already. And I can hear it in your voice. That hopeless feeling, I think, is a normal thing to feel. You can feel pretty trapped sometimes, but I think you also have the glimmer of hope that you can see that you still have some control over what you choose to do in this. I feel like you kind of know that if you choose to keep getting healthier, it will be an invitation for the relationship to grow. But if he doesn't come along, there's something inside of you that knows that that'll put you in a spot to make some hard choices. And eventually, and maybe that's something that slows down your own personal progress from time to time. But I'm impressed with the work you're already doing.
Sarah, don't go watch Seven Brides for Seven Brothers today. It's full of triggers.
I've already seen it. Once is enough.
Bless your beautiful hide. It's just horribly objectifying of women.
That was a classic, Brandon. We watched that at Grandma Patrick's house as kids like all the time, man.
Oh, yeah, you know why frankincense is called frankincense?
Because he smells so sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't watch it.
Yeah, don't go watch that today. Sarah, go take care of yourself today. We've had a heavy conversation. We've talked about some hard things. And with young kids, it's hard to just stop and love yourself. So take some time for you, process this through. And hopefully this is helpful to shift some things within you and within your relationship.
Yeah. No, it has been helpful. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on, Sarah. And thank you to our audience who is listening. If you want to support Sarah, one of the best ways to do that is to leave us a review and mention her specifically. And until next time, you guys keep on keeping on.